Hi guys, powerlessness. I want to talk to you about powerlessness, okay? In the late 80s, 87, 88, something like that, Manchester Crown Court sentenced me to, I had two options: back to prison for the 5th time, or go into rehabilitation for my heroin addiction, and I chose to go into rehab. They sent me to a facility called Pierpoint House in Lytham St Anne's on the coast of England, near Blackpool, up in the northwest. Fantastic facility, unbelievable facility. I've gone from the prison wing and the cold, harsh reality of the prison system to Manchester Crown Court, and then from Manchester Crown Court through to this clinic. It was absolutely unbelievable. And when I first got there, I was met at the door. These guys were warned about my arrival. And when I first got there, in order to get over their own anxiety and sense of trepidation about this criminal coming from the prison, because it was a private sector treatment clinic, man. About 7 of them met me at the door, okay? And they greeted me, and I said, yeah, it's heroin addiction and amphetamine addiction, all kinds of nonsense. And they said to me, yeah, we got it, we get it, we hear you, man. You're powerless there. You're powerless over your addiction and your life becomes unmanageable. And it made sense. Powerless. Wow. I thought I was stupid. I thought I was weak. And my temptation was to believe that the concept of powerless meant weakness. But I could see that these guys really said what they believed and believed what they said, and I found it easy to believe in the concept of powerlessness, okay? I believed about the concept of powerlessness, okay? I didn't actually understand it, so I couldn't actually believe in it or apply it to myself. It just made sense. And so I apparently, intellectually and verbally accepted powerlessness. Of course I'm powerless. And then he goes on to talk about unmanageability and insanity and all kinds of stuff. But the first point of contact with me going into an addiction treatment context was, out of 13 and a half years of intravenous heroin and amphetamine addiction, you're powerless. That's why I couldn't stop. That's why every night when I said tomorrow it's going to be different, I did it all again. I'm powerless. And I kept relapsing. And I just couldn't stay clean, even though I believed about powerlessness and I had an understanding of powerlessness. I kept relapsing. And now with hindsight, I can see that I didn't actually believe in powerlessness actually being a subjective condition of me. I just believed about it. I didn't believe in it, I just believed about it. And then another Achilles heel for me was when in that particular recovery program, they talk about God. Oh yeah, I believe in God. I've always believed in God. And then as I go on and I look at my life, and it's prison, relapse, intravenous drug using, sleeping on the street, sleeping in shop doorways, crime, everything I touched turns to stone. I believe in God. And I didn't believe in God, I believed about God. And I didn't believe in powerlessness, I believed about powerlessness. I didn't believe in the 12-step recovery program, but I believed about the 12-step recovery program. It didn't work for me, man. It didn't work. I could not get my head around. The information was here, and it sounded good coming out of here, but I didn't know how to allow it to drop to here, all right? And so in the process of time, when I eventually get clean and I do some study with clarity of thought, I start to research what was it about alcohol, what was it about them, because we started to call the various chemicals that we use mind and mood altering substances, and I know that's true. They changed the way I think, they changed the way I feel. They gave me the ability to control how I think and control how I feel, and I felt powerful and I felt in control. Okay, so in research, a layman's understanding. I needed a layman to teach me, and I kind of found what I need on various websites and talking to relational type of counselors rather than the professional, going to send you an invoice type of a counselor. And I started to understand how when I take the wine, it turns me upside down. I'm supposed to operate on day to day as a human being, interacting with other human beings, interacting with children, adults, with unsavory people, with nice people. I function intellect over emotion, okay? I have to function over intellect over emotion, because if I function emotion over intellect, every time I see somebody begging in the street or hungry, I'm going to give them I'm not going to be able to stop myself from giving everything away. Intellect over emotion keeps me safe, as well as hopefully the people around me. When I consume the substance, it flips and I start to function emotion over intellect. Okay? That's what the substance does to my brain. When I take the substance, it goes straight to my head, or I feel lightheaded. And the chemicals that are released in my brain turn the world upside down, or turn me upside down on a normal planet. And I start to function emotion over intellect. I start to fall in love if a woman walks past me and I like the smell of her perfume. If a guy looks at me wrong, I'm going to kill him. There's the madness, there's the insanity. I'm supposed to operate intellect over emotion, but I start to function emotion over intellect, which inevitably means I'm going to say and do things that are kind of out of context. It can get really out of hand. And what I also failed to see was the more substances I used, the more they gradually ate away at my moral and ethical circuit board. You might call that your conscience. I want, for the purpose of this exercise, for the purpose of this lecture, I want to explain how the substances, the frequent consumption of the substances ate away, became a cancer to my moral and ethical circuit board. My morals and my ethics slowly dropped the more I drank. What does it mean to be powerless? That's the question I want to address now. With everything I've just said in mind, I want to try and explore with you, what does it mean to be powerless? I hope you can agree with the moral and ethical decay with the increase and constant use and abuse of these mind and mood altering substances, because I'm convinced that moral and ethical decay is one of the key cogs in the machinery of madness that keep me using as soon as I start using. Okay? And then by the time we need help, we start to, what we fail to see is life. By the time I got to the clinic from the prison, all right, I've been using for I don't know how long at that point, but by the time I got to the clinic, my life was controlled. My life had been controlled. My social life, my family life, my work life, everything about my life was controlled by driving forces within me, like fear and guilt and shame and despair and regrets and failure and loss and unreasonable ambitions that sounded something like this: I'm going to beat this. I got myself into this mess. I'll get myself out of this mess. The substances kind of became steroids to my ambitions, whilst they also became cancer to my capabilities and my decision-making faculty. Okay? Admitting we were powerless is supposed to mean that we truly understand and accept that we sabotage our own ability to control our substance abuse, the amounts we consume, and if or stroke hopefully when we might stop. And we lose that ability right from the first drink. From the very moment we take that first drug is never the last drug. Okay? Men and women who truly understand how powerless they become from the point of consumption of that drink or that drug, as soon as we fall under the influence of the mind and mood altering substance, we cannot begin to imagine how bad this is going to get, because even the powerlessness seems to be as progressive as anything and everything else. Right from taking that first, men and women who truly understand how powerless they become from the next point of contact with the mind and mood altering substance. It's not the first drug that causes it, or it's not the last drug that causes the mayhem, it's the first. And men and women who truly face that and embrace it, men and women for whom that becomes a subjective fact, that becomes a way of life, they don't pick up that first drink, they don't pick up that first drug. Okay? And the danger is, for some of you youngsters these days, whereas in my day we had a certain types of drugs, heroin and amphetamine, but we had a pretty decent idea of what we were consuming. You kids don't know what you're playing with. Whereas for us, for many of us, substances like cannabis and alcohol, they slowly eat away at our moral and ethical circuit board. The substances today, when some of you youngsters consume these drugs of today, and it's been the same since ecstasy seemed to have been a game changer. Our moral and ethical circuit board, as soon as the substance took over, and it short circuits, it creates a burnout in our moral and ethical circuit board. All decisions thereafter are, at best, false promises, dreamlike ambitions. So whilst heroin addicts and alcoholics of my day slowly but surely spiraled into moral and ethical decay, we take the substance, we consume the substance, and it's like taking one of these into the brain. Men and women who truly accept and understand powerlessness don't drink. Many of us can learn how to stave off, to fend off our substance abuse from time to time, but sooner or later it all seems to come tumbling down around us and we go straight back to where we were at the worst point of our addiction. We're powerless. We're powerless and out of control. We're powerless, stroke lawless, and unmanageable, stroke out of control. You mean well, but then you judge yourself by what you mean. You mean really well, man. You look at your children and you say to your children, "I love you, my darling." And you really believe it, but then your actions say, "Screw you." That's powerlessness, eh? That's spiritual, psychological, relational powerlessness. It's out of control. Why? According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the definition of powerless says devoid of strength and resources, lacking the authority or capacity to act. That's the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of powerless. Devoid of strength and resources, lacking the authority or capacity to act. Similarly, if you look at the definition of powerless in the Oxford Dictionary, it says lack of ability, influence and strength to act, to actually fulfill something. And this is the domino effect, okay? When we try to come out of addiction and into a window like this, if you're still on the edges of your addiction, or you've not been clean and sober for very long, for the first 6, 9, 12 months of your recovery program, it's about self-discovery, okay? I don't think it's fair to call that period of our lives recovery. We are gravitating towards recovery the further we gravitate away from active addiction, okay? But many times, these are the key reasons why many people relapse quick after addiction treatment or coming out of prison, man. I did so many prison centres, and I made a million promises that I'm gonna be the best dad, the best husband, gonna get a job, blah, loads of pages and pages of blah blah every week. And then on my way home from the prison, and I swore off in my heart, I'm never going back on heroin. Wow, never. Okay, that is completely off the table. Day one. Stop tomorrow. It's one for the road. And this is the domino effect. Because we never actually give ourselves long enough to practice any level of secret integrity. Please take a look at my 2 sugar levels of integrity YouTube on our ehab.care YouTube channel. Please take a look at the 2 sugar levels of integrity on our YouTube channel. And because we never really give ourselves long enough to practice any levels of secret integrity, we haven't really invested into a true life-changing recovery program. Okay? All our ambitions, all the talk that we spout in the rooms, and all the promises that we make to our wives, and all the efforts that we make to stay in the house and don't drink today, it's lipstick on a pig. That's all it is. And you can put as much lipstick on a pig as you want when you're in control, and you're only feeding the monster, man. It's a power trip. We're supposed to be accepting and receiving life-changing concepts of powerlessness. It's about surrender. Please have a look at the surrender clip that we've got in this same section of the ehab.care program. Our self-esteem account, despite all the fine talk and despite all the sincere efforts, our self-esteem account just continues to run on empty. Our exhibitionism in the home and in the recovery rooms eventually starts to stagnate. The applause starts to die down, and the subtle cravings for attention and approval resurface and intensify. And then, because we've got no recovery memories built on a platform on foundations of integrity, taking another drink and taking another line and taking another pill eventually starts like a pretty decent idea. It doesn't sound like such a bad idea. And this is why it doesn't sound like a bad idea. Our moral and ethical circuit board has not been given time to repair itself. And our people picker is still full of bull dust. Like the definition says, as soon as we pick up the substance, we lack the strength, the resources, and the authority, and or the capacity to put the substances down again. It always takes a crisis-based intervention. Most 12-step programs and treatment centres believe that recovery can only start by admitting powerlessness. I don't agree with that. Admitting something is like admitting, yeah, I believe in God. I didn't believe in God. I believed about God. So I'm not quite sure the recovery is born in admitting powerlessness. It's widely accepted that the idea of recovery and sobriety begins with admitting powerlessness. For me personally, I'm not convinced. I think recovery starts and stops in the motives for why we're asking for help. ehab.care is the perfect platform with undeniable levels of clinical qualifications to help you find, recognize, and embrace, and then recondition all our twisted motives and hidden agendas so that we truly can learn and understand and receive at a life-changing, heart-changing, subjective level, powerlessness as soon as I pick up the substances. Why are we professing a desire for sobriety? Is it because we want people's opinions to change towards us? Do we want to do something about the consequences of our addiction? Okay, because not many people come for help with purity of motive. I don't think I've ever met anybody who comes to where you might be right now with a purity of motive. You might only be 10% sincere about wanting to stop drinking and smoking and using and all that kind of stuff. And 90% of it is to control the world around you. That's pretty normal. We've come out of a blueprint default program of being in control. Admitting powerlessness does not take away our knee-jerk default program of being in control. We don't know what it means to not be in control. We failed to see that we've never been in control, but it felt like we were in control. So many people come to help with hidden agendas and desires to manipulate and control their homes, their families, and even their social environments, and certainly try to save their careers. Alcoholics Anonymous say that those people who still believe that they can control drink. Alcoholics Anonymous actually say those people who still believe that they can control their drinking drink. I'm going to go a step further. I do agree with them, but I think they just fall slightly short. People, men and women who are coming out of a chemical dependency, who still believe that they can control, that's not sober, that's not clean and sober. That's a power trip. That's a complete denial of powerlessness. Powerlessness is a paradox. There is a paradox of powerlessness. And I want to introduce you to, I want to urge you to go and watch John Stewart's YouTube video on the paradox of powerlessness. Once again, guys, we look forward to hearing from you, working for you, and we look forward to your recovery. We look forward to your recovery more than you do. God bless you all, man.